Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto and welcome to this new video about the crypto markets. We're going to do a full update on everything that's going on today. I have to say that there have been times today that we have seen higher volume, but ultimately today is relatively quiet when we're talking about the real price action, when we're talking about the real price changes. It's quiet, and there's also, like, when we're talking about headlines, there's no major headlines coming out right now. There are some significant movements, I would argue, in the fundamentals, in the underlying fundamentals of the financial markets, which obviously also at this point of time at least matter for Bitcoin. So we'll talk about that, and I'll try to prepare you as well as I can for the weekend, but there's not much going on, and it very much seems that we need a little bit of time potentially to recover from all of the price action we've had since Tuesday, but mostly Wednesday and yesterday. Yesterday was obviously a very bearish day. We have ultimately been able to hold 107, which, if you watched my middle of the day market update yesterday on Bitcoin, that was the expectation. So in that sense, I'm very happy with that, but ultimately, like the 30-minute time frame, you can see some recovery, but we're still not there yet, right? And recovery is still a question and not a statement. But okay, so like I said, no major headlines today. There is some not amazing development for underlying fundamentals. As you can see right here, like equities, when we're talking about the S&P 500, has been able to open a little bit higher, but after that we saw a red candle. And it's pushing down right now. Now this is double, right? Because equities, okay, we drop down after open, but ultimately, if you look at the S&P 500, it is still in an uptrend, right? And if you look at something like the Russell 2000, which is riskier assets, which I have right here, you can also see we got a pretty good bounce, right? So equities are definitely not a factor that is pushing the price down. However, what we are seeing, and something that I don't really like, is that where yesterday afternoon we saw that the volatility index, which is unrest, right? And we don't want unrest in the financial markets. Where yesterday the volatility index was had increased but was decreasing again. Right now it was decreased. It actually opened lower this morning. And now it's increasing, which is not amazing. And then at the same point of time, the dollar strength index over the course of today actually increased as well, which again is not amazing. And then if you look at the bond yields, those actually over the course of this morning increased as well. So the underlying fundamentals are not amazing. Fundamentals at this point of time are definitely not the reason I'm telling you that Bitcoin and that crypto is able to form a bottom, which I do expect, right? I mean, what I told you this morning is you have to be cautious, and it's better to wait for confirmation, which we'll talk about in a moment. But ultimately, I do think Bitcoin is bottoming, and I still do think that, regardless of the fundamentals being so bad, I still do think that, and that's for one major reason, and that is the price action today. The price action today has actually not been bad for Bitcoin, and we have actually been able to reclaim 110,000. I said this morning, 110,000 is the most important level to reclaim. That's an intraday resistance level. It's a minor resistance level, but still, it matters. And it's the previous day value area high, right? So if we were able to reclaim that, then technically we were finding balance higher than where we found balance yesterday, which is a good sign. And outside of that, I mean, let's not forget the structure for Bitcoin. The structure for Bitcoin is a consolidation. And we've been in this consolidation since the 10th of July. And as long as we're holding this level at 108,000 into 107,000, that's the high time frame support zone. As long as we're holding that, we have technically not shifted down into a lower balance, which means that we are still holding this balance here to the upside, which means that we are at support, and that it's most likely, if we're assuming this structure is holding, it's most likely we're going to bounce. Now, earlier today, a little bit after the US session had started, we had a high volume move. You can see some new leverage coming into the market right here on Bitcoin. I think it's very important for Bitcoin that we will hold that level, right? So for me, when we're talking about confirmation, for me, what's very important is that over the course of the next couple of hours, Bitcoin is going to hold this level right here between 110 and 109.6. That is the key. Like, if we want recovery tonight, if we want recovery over the weekend, we need to hold that. If we're able to hold that, I think we can easily get to 112,000. And I think after that, we can even start talking about 113.6. If we are not able to hold that level, we will at least drop down to 108,000. And if we get a weak reaction there, honestly, and I don't like to say this, but then we can start to find balance lower again. So that's the critical level right now. Now look, very often I give you my prediction, right? So I give you, okay, I think it's most likely we will hold that, or I think it's most likely that we will drop down below that. Honestly, given the current market circumstances, look, what you have to know is that I do have some positions open. I do have skin in the game for the market to bounce right here. But if I were you, I would wait for confirmation, right? I would wait for either a strong bounce there or a drop down below. And then based on that, you know, start planning for your next actions. And that's just me being honest, right? It's much better to right now, if you're not in positions from lower, it's much better to wait for confirmation than to risk it on a Friday evening, which is very often not a great day. Now, when we're talking about, we'll talk about some altcoins that are interesting. When we're talking about major altcoins, and then we're talking about Ethereum and XRP, I think those are just incredibly reliant on Bitcoin. And they're just moving in tandem with Bitcoin right now. I think XRP is most likely to stay within that range between 2.58 and 2.41 for now. I think for Ethereum, it's most likely we'll be able to find support at 3,800 and that we will slowly but surely move into 4,000 again. But nothing major and nothing with a lot of momentum either. Now, something that does have momentum, talking about, you know, something optimistic here at the end of the video, is BitTensor. As you can see, BitTensor has broken out of 460 and 450 as expected, by the way. I think this is a real breakout. I think this is a very interesting coin to keep your eyes on. So do that, keep your eyes on BitTensor, and I think this rallies higher. After a pullback, of course. And outside of that, Syrup is actually still holding on incredibly well. As you can see, strong bounce from 40 cents. I think Syrup, as long as we're holding 40 cents, but in general, I think Syrup can actually rally higher based on the strong fundamentals that it has. Same thing with Aerodrome, by the way, but that's a little bit more tricky. Those are my thoughts for today. Have a great weekend, everybody, in advance. Hopefully it helps, but for now, thank you for watching. Take care and bye.